we go.
See that right there?
Oh, I like it. Keep that unbuttoned. I want to show them that.
I just pulled it out. You want? Whip it out. Pretty nice.
No better way to spend a Saturday than at the 65th Annual Ford Boat Sport and Travel Show. We're here in the Travel Cafe in the Champions Pavilion. We couldn't be better placed to bring the Indy Sports Show live to so many people. The whole point of this is to get up close and personal, learn about some of the great pro staffers and presenters and vendors for the 65th Annual Ford Boat Sport and Travel Show. You know, this is all over social media, obviously on the Boat Sport and Travel Show YouTube and Facebook pages. We look forward to having some great feedback. I don't know that there's anybody that has more of a social media presence than our guest now, Chad Hoover. Chad, it's great to have you be here. And I love that shirt.
I appreciate it. I'll take it off and give it to you when we're done here. I just want to say thanks when we first get started, because usually when I do these things, I'm the dude that looks the biggest on camera. So I just want to say thanks for you making me look at least normal size.
I've trained my whole life for this.
Gotcha. I appreciate it.
So an author, a TV personality, kayak bass fishing, godfather, you've been called?
Yeah, I think so.
What do you call yourself?
Just a kayak fisherman that got lucky in the right place at the right time. I'm still as passionate about it today as I was when I got started, if not more, because I know how much opportunity that there is. I know how much we still have yet to accomplish in not just the sport of kayak fishing as a niche, but as fishermen, right? We had a decline from 2010 to 2015, 16 in overall fishing numbers. And I'm just excited that we are making fishing more accessible. We're making the economic barrier to entry a lot lower, and we're getting kids excited about fishing again, because there was a kind of a generational gap developing in hunting and fishing for years, and I think that we've reinvigorated that make fishing fun again kind of a thing, and to be able to allow more people to get into it without having to have an expensive bass boat, or the liability insurance of being able to operate a power boat, or and there's just so many more places you can fish in a kayak, and that's what I like about it.
And it's real simple to say, get out in the water in a kayak, but you've talked a lot about how different of an experience it is to be in a kayak because of the places that you can get to. And what I really like is the approach of, it's not necessarily about catching the fish, but being where the fish live. Mm-hmm. Being in nature, being in places that you're not on a big lake with a big expensive bass boat. Nothing wrong with it. It's just a different way to do it.
And I go fishing in a lot of places where I'm the only person there. And I don't know how many people go fishing and say, you know what I really want to do this weekend? I'd like to go fish where there's as many people as possible. So I get a lot of blowback sometimes when people go, oh, you're fishing all these private lakes, or you're fishing these, and they're not all private. A lot of times I'm just doing my homework. I'm doing the legwork. I'm willing to drag my kayak 3 miles through the woods with a strap and put in the sweat equity to find those places that nobody else can find. So for me, yeah, you're dang right. I don't want to get out there and fish right next to somebody else making a bunch of noise and running their trolling motor into stumps and dropping their pliers in the bottom of the boat. I don't want to take all the time, effort, energy, money that I've invested in having that experience and have it ruined by somebody else. So I do the best I can as often as I can to get the heck away from people, unless it's another kayak angler, and together we're trying to find or explore that body of water. For the most part, I'm not really interested in fishing right next to somebody and doing the old, any luck? No, man, just stay over there. I got my spot, you're good. So
do you consider yourself a professional fisherman?
I don't. People consider me a professional fisherman. They say, and some of my sponsors even have it on their website, Chad Hoover, professional kayak angler. And to me, I think that it diminishes what I actually do. And, this is meant to be no disrespect to people that are a professional fisherman, but I'm an entrepreneur. I started my own businesses. I retired from the Navy, and then I basically bet my life on what I wanted to do. And, I've had a few people in my life that have been kind of the inspiration for that, where I've seen them go out and do what it is that they love. but it was a risk. It was a risk of going from making, you know, really good money as an officer in the Navy to, you know, buying and developing my own business, and going from making over 6 figures as a military officer with an extensive background in aeronautical engineering and Lean Six Sigma theory of constraints to living in a spare bedroom of a buddy's house for a year while I ran a business making less than $30,000. And so I went all in, you know what I mean? And so for me, I'm not a professional fisherman. I'm an entrepreneur, I'm an entertainer, I'm an educator, and it just so happens that I fish for a living. And so you could say that I'm a professional fisherman, but I don't think so. I think I'm an entrepreneur.
Well, in the world that we live in the commercialization of the outdoor industry and the sponsors, you rely on them. But what I've always admired about you, and I think the people that enjoy what you do, is it's the angler that catches the fish. It's not the gear that catch the fish.
Right.
Is that hard for you to justify?
No, it's not. And I do what I can to balance that. And, you know, the one thing that people who know me know about me is that I'm not owned by anybody, right? I do this, my nickname, which I say is earned, you know, not given, is that I'm not right.
Not right.
And that's the name of my show on Sportsman Channel, is Not Right Kayak Fishing. And it's because I say whatever I think, and I don't cater to anybody. Even some of my better sponsors sometimes cringe when I say things like, you don't need a $700 power pole to hold your kayak in position. It's nice if you don't want to have to fight that pole in and out of your scupper hole or through an anchor trolley, but you don't have to have it. It's nice to have a bona fide kayak with the most comfortable seat in the market, but you don't have to have it to go fishing. And even a lot of my contemporaries in the sport don't like the fact that I say, don't save up for your best kayak, because a lot of them say that in their videos. Save up until you can afford the best kayak possible before you get into it. And I think that's crap. You're never gonna get back those days you didn't go fishing, waiting on saving up. So buy the best kayak you can buy right now. What I will tell you is, don't judge kayak fishing by a crappy kayak if you get into it and say, man, this is not good, because it could be the experience from that kayak. But take to heart what you're able to do in that kayak, and then, you know, slowly but surely upgrade until you can afford the best possible kayak to where you're more comfortable, you can spend more time on the water. But I don't tell people to wait. And I also don't tell people you have to have what I have. My job is to promote the pinnacle of the sport, what you can do with the motors and the depth finders and the power pole and all of those other things. And are they great to have? You're dang on right they're great to have, but I've busted my butt over 20 years to get to the point where I can have those nice things, but I also don't have other nice things. You know what I mean? I don't have a pool. I don't have really fancy anything other than my fishing stuff. So where a lot of people spend a ton of money on other stuff, mine's all fishing. So
I have a 110-pound Bernese Mountain Dog, and I tell him all the time, you're the reason we can't have anything nice.
Exactly.
So let's go back, because I know you're very proud, 20 years in the Navy, thank you for that.
Thank you, man.
And also starting your own businesses, KBF. Let's go back to the beginning, because you put some ink on, you're all in right there.
Skin in the game.
Kayak bass fishing, social media, you have a huge following. I think you said over 300,000 total combined.
Yeah.
You know, 66,000 people on Instagram. YouTube, 44,000, 47,000 on Instagram. How is that? Does that distract you?
It can. And I recently had a heart incident, a medical situation where I think that the stress that I was carrying for so long really kind of got to me. And it's because I want to be everything that I can possibly be for everybody. I didn't start KBF so that I could fish tournaments, because I can't fish them. I started it so that I would provide that opportunity for the other anglers out there. So back to your question about being a professional fisherman. I don't consider myself a professional fisherman, but I wanted to create the platform where there could be professional kayak anglers. And I think that we're getting there. We're this close. In fact, I was hoping to be able to announce something major on the air here, but we're gonna have to push it back until we get all the I's dotted and T's crossed. But we got something bigger than a 12-year-old in preschool coming next week that is going to change the landscape of competitive kayak fishing. And so for me, the thing that I'm probably the most proud of is being able to create that platform where guys will be able to make a living fishing from a kayak, and not necessarily being an entrepreneur or a television show host and all that kind of stuff. Because I'm going to tell you right now, if you're watching this and you're considering getting into TV, then it's a long road to hoe. You better have 3 years in the bag of money that you can survive off of, because you're not going to make money at it in 3 years. You might make money at it in 4. You might make money at it in 5, but we really got into the black. That's a fancy word for profit. We got into the black at our 7th year. And so I had a conversation with somebody on the staff at Sportsman Channel the other day, and they were telling me how 95+% of television shows failed in the first 3 years. And then another, 50% fell from years 4 through 10. And then if you make it over that 10-year hump, then you're pretty golden. So I'm proud of the fact that we're rolling into season 9 and we're still tracking, and we've been able to make it worth. It's been a scratch, bite, dig, fight, and it meant 4, probably 5 solid years of the lowest quality of life that I had lived in the previous 20. It meant that I was gear rich and that I had great sponsors and great opportunities, but not necessarily, life rich. I didn't have a whole lot going on, and still haven't really gotten to where I feel like I'm getting compensated for what I deserve to run a company as big as we have, but we're getting there, and not many people are willing to roll the dice, especially with a family, on
You've
putting it all
obviously got
out
a
there.
good support system in your wife, and
Unbelievable
I know she's
support
going to be
system.
here later in the week for the show. But you really got your start down in the Corpus Christi area, down in
Yes.
Texas.
Mm-hmm.
Now you live up in Hendersonville, Tennessee. I can only imagine what it might have been like for you when you first started kayak fishing on some boat ramp in Alabama when you pull up. What they say to you?
I can tell you what's crazy about it is when I first started kayak fishing in Corpus Christi, it was kind of a novelty. People would see it and go, "Oh man, that's pretty cool," but they didn't want to try it. And then it's funny you mentioned Alabama, because I tell people all the time, I cannot launch a kayak, even to this day, in Alabama without having 4 or 5 good old boys, standing around going, "Man, dude, that's awesome." And they, 9 times out of 10, they walk up to me with fishing rods on the kayak, a depth finder, a power pole, and they walk up to the kayak and go, "You got a power pole on that thing?" It kind of reminds me of the old Bill Engvall, here's your sign videos.
Yep.
It's like, yeah, you going fishing in that thing? Dude, it says kayak bass fishing down the side, So I tell this story a lot. I was one time in Virginia Beach. So after I got into it in Corpus Christi, I transferred to Virginia. Virginia's got a lot of great water, a lot of awesome salt water and awesome fresh water kind of right in the same area. So that's really what blew things up for me. But I was at a boat ramp, and this guy walked up and he said, "You fish out of that thing?" And I said, "No, sir." He said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, you ever heard of DuPont Chemical?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "So DuPont makes these coatings that go on all these products, and what my job is to paddle around out in saltwater and make sure that these products are going to stand up to the rigors of saltwater." And he goes, "Get out of here." And I didn't know how well I had sold it or not sold it, but as I said, "Hey man, I got to run to the truck, lock my truck, and I'll be back. You mind watching my stuff?" He said, "No problem." By the time I get back over there, he's got a buddy standing there, and he's telling him, he's like, "Look here, now this dude's job is to paddle around with that kayak with all the stuff on it and figure out if it's going to stand up to the rigors of saltwater." And the guy goes, "Huh, for real? How you get that job?" And then he goes like this, and he smacks him. He goes, "And he don't even fish." So yes, to a certain extent, even to this day, every time I go fishing, people are still blown away by how advanced fishing kayaks are, by how much gear we can put on them, power poles and depth finders and motors. I'm a big advocate for motorized kayaks because it allows access to people who absolutely need the motor. And people all the time say, "I think motors should be allowed for people who need them." And so this is my reasoning behind promoting the use of motors. If there isn't a market for a motor to be used by the people who don't need it, there won't be a market for the motor to be there for the people who do need it. And so I partnered up with Torqeedo a long time ago. A lot of people know that they put some money towards growing the national championship 2 years ago, last year, and even this year. But for 5 solid years, I was affiliated with them without any compensation whatsoever, just because I believed in the product and I believed in the concept, and I believed that you need access. And ironically enough, Brian, when I had this incident with my heart, I was able to get back on the water 2 weeks sooner than I would have, because my doctor said as long as you're using the motor, you're fine. But if you have to paddle aggressively, you probably should take off a month. Well, I would have missed one of our bigger events called the 10 and Invitational down in Bienville. I wouldn't have been able to get on the water as soon as I was. I wouldn't have been able to go as far. And so I became kind of a benefactor of the flag that I'd been waving, because if I hadn't, I wouldn't have had a motor. And then if I had been one of those people that put the pole in the moon and said, I'm not an advocate of motors, then I'd have had to eat my shoe to say now I need one. So I caution everybody against taking some hard stance against something that other people need that you might one day need, you know. So
you've brought up this a couple of times, and I know it has to mean a lot to you. You talk about the hard times, the struggles. What lessons did you bring out of that? Tell me about the hard times.
Well, what I learned about it was, if you really believe in something, if you really believe in what you're doing, then you look past what you're going through right now. You kind of see that carrot on the end of the stick of what you want to accomplish. And I tell people all the time, if you're not willing to sacrifice for something, it ain't worth having. If you're not willing to risk everything you can to get everything you want, you'll never get anything more than what you already have. And so, dang, did that sound like a motivational kind of?
Yeah. I think you've got another
I gave myself a goosebump right there, a goosebump. But it's true, and I'm not one of these, philosophical people that can tell you that you can be anything that you want to be. That's crap. Neither one of us are going to be underwear models. You know what I'm saying? It's just not going to happen.
I was going to go with Olympic athlete, but
now,
okay.
Most people don't realize this about me, but I actually used to be a male dancer. Did you know that?
I did not.
Yeah, I was kind of like Chippendales, but it was the southern version.
Oh.
Yeah, we called ourselves Biscuits and Gravy, and we were opening an act at Cracker Barrel every Sunday morning. So it was a pretty good deal. But no, it was one of those things where I just knew what was coming. I could see it, and I wanted to make it happen, and it didn't matter. Like, and I probably put my family, especially my oldest son, Austin, through a lot of stuff getting there. We actually did a podcast with a group about dads and bass fishing a couple weeks ago, and, I talked about the fact that I burned him out on fishing. I mean, I started fishing with him when he was 8 months old, carrying him one of them chest backpacks, and then up until he was 13 years old, he was fishing 200 plus days a year. I was taking him to Canada, and he was dragging his kayak up over a mountain to portage into these, or they say portage, but to portage into these remote lakes. There was times that we paddled 20 plus miles in a day. When I say we, I mean he paddled his own boat, he drug his own kayak, and then I was literally taking him fishing on all the TV shows. And for me, as a dad, I was thinking, dude, how could you not love this? But it became work for him. It became, so you gotta balance it. And so I don't feel like you can be successful without being 100% in on something. I think if you halfway it, you're not going to be successful. But if with hindsight being 20/20, there's probably some things I could have done different. And yeah.
So in the short time that we have left here on Indie Sports Show Live, what's something that I haven't asked you that you want to make sure people hear, or something that's important to you that I haven't brought up yet?
The thing that I like the most about kayak fishing is it allows families to fish together in a way that is more enjoyable than any way that I've ever seen before. I've watched families go put out chairs on the bank and cast out their rods, but then one of the kids is on the other side of the park, and then one person ends up being the person mending all the rods and getting everything untangled, and it's frustrating for half and then not that gratifying for the other half. I've watched families of 4 or 5 go out on a boat, and it's like a fire drill on there trying to fish around each other. But when I see families of 2, 3, 4, 5 couples, starting with the couples, then to the couples and 1 kid, and the couple and 2 kids, and even the families with multiple children, is once you get out there, everybody's kind of independently doing their own thing, but at the same time you're all together. And so I think the part that I don't do a good job of conveying in the television shows and the social media and the YouTube, which we're going to do a better job of this year, is how family friendly this is. Because I know people who say, my wife won't go fishing with me, but she will go kayaking and go read a book or get some sun or get some exercise, and she loves going out. And even though she won't go fishing with me when I take the kids out on the boat, when we go paddling together, she wants to go, or vice versa. And so to me, the part that we don't touch on enough, and the part that I don't do a good job of conveying is how awesome this is for families.
Yep.
And how versatile it is. And then when you've got that spare kayak or that kayak that your wife's or your oldest kids or whatever, and they can't happen to go, and you got that buddy that wants to go, you got that buddy boat, so you can get more people into it, and then the next thing you know, they got their family into it. And so to me, it's infectious. It's I tell people all the time, once you go yak, you don't go back. You know, it really is a great way to get out on the water.
Everybody knows big guys like me can't kayak, right?
That's not true. I am the poster boy. I've lost 75 pounds in the last 10 months, but at my peak, I was 346. Now I'm like 270, 268. And so forever, I was actually kind of proud of the fact that I was the poster boy for anybody can do it. You know, I was a big dude. I could stand up in the kayaks. I could, you know, it was perfect. And so honestly, I don't think that anybody of any size can find a kayak that'll fit their needs. There's something out there for everybody. So
let's postpone here the conversation on kayaking. Just a couple of things as a fisherman. Who are some people that you would like to meet in the professional or in the bass fishing world that you haven't met yet? Who are those that you look up to?
To be honest with you, I've been really blessed. You know, after going to ICAST for 13 years now, or 12 years, or however long it's been, and I'm one of the first guys there that was telling everybody about kayaks, and at first they looked at me like I had a unicorn horn growing out of my head, and now they're all like, the kayak guy. I've really got to meet almost all of my idols. I've got to meet most of the people that influenced me growing up, and I've actually become friends with a few of them. There's some older, you know, folks in the industry, you know, that passed on before, you know, I came, you know, before I even became a fisherman, that like in a perfect world, if I could go back and meet, that'd be pretty cool. You know, one of the guys that's been one of the biggest impacts on me from kind of explaining to me how the industry works, and I couldn't tell you why he like befriended me, but Ray Scott. I met Ray Scott at a show 10 years ago, and we started talking, and he invited me to come down to Hope Hole, Pentlala, Alabama, to the Ray Scott Trophy Bass Retreats, and it just blew me away how much time that a guy at that level with his stature would take to talk to a guy like me. And it really meant a lot to me that that's what you have to do. As you grow in your influence and as you grow in your posture, you still got to be able to make time for the people that help you get there. And so that guy has probably been the biggest single influence from somebody in the professional side of the industry. And he does little simple things, like he put his hand on my shoulder one time and he did the little shoulder rub, and he said, don't undersell yourself in this industry. Everybody in this industry will want you for less than you're worth. You got to know what you're worth, and you got to get it. And that's resonated with me.
You know what? It sounds like you're already paying it forward. Folks, I can't tell you how great it is to visit with such influencers in the outdoors, hunting and fishing. That's what Indy Sports Show Live is all about. That's what the 65th Annual Ford Boat Sport and Travel Show is all about. Chad Hoover is our guest. You Google him in any way, shape, or form, no way you can not follow him, and he does put out some great material. So with that, we are going to be back with Mr. Who are we having next? Mr. Crappie.
Mr.
Wally,
Crappie.
Mr. Crappie. He's going to be with us when we come back. Don't go anywhere. We're here all day long and tomorrow. It is from the Travel Cafe, Indy Sports Show Live. I'm Brian Pointer, your host.